Let me know if you want to see more of these types of videos that aren't necessarily funny. I don't say anything witty. It's just me informing people of things that are going on in the gaming industry. When I grew up, I always wanted a console, but I could never afford one because I wasn't rich enough. And I missed out on so many cool games. I remember seeing Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, and I was upset that I can't play it. I remember seeing Uncharted, and I was really upset that I can't play it. And many, many other games. But right now, when I'm a little bit better off financially, I have a PlayStation, and I generally do not see the appeal, to be honest. I don't see it because everything on PlayStation, I can also pay on the computer, and if I have a better computer, I could even play it with better graphics. So instead of buying a new PlayStation, I could just use that money and upgrade my PC so I can play it under better graphics. Now, with that said, there are a couple of games that are PlayStation exclusive, like God of War, and I suppose The Last of Us 2, if you're into that franchise. But overall, you don't get that much if you play a console, so I actually regretted buying one for those particular reasons. Now, there are still some advantages, I'm not going to lie, in buying a console. I think the biggest advantage is the fact that you can play on VR much cheaper than you can play on a computer. The VR headset for the PlayStation is, I think, the cheapest option compared to the ones on a computer, and the fact that it uses the graphics card from the PlayStation means you don't have to upgrade it. And it's an interesting experience. There are a couple of games that are really good on PlayStation for VR. One of them is called Robinson, and it's a game that is severely underrated. Like, the only bad thing about that game is that it's very short. However, it is jaw dropping what they managed to do with that game. You genuinely feel like you're on a different planet with dinosaurs all around you. It's one of my favorite games for the VR, and I wish they would make more games like it because it was just amazing. Unfortunately, because it's VR and most people don't have the money to buy the headset, or there are people that experience motion sickness and do not want to challenge themselves to go through it until they can train their body to not get sick, it didn't sell very well. So it's quite unfortunate because I was wanting a sequel for that game. Another game which is also for VR and it's very good is Batman Arkham VR, and you get to actually feel like Batman in Gotham City. That game manages to do well with avoiding people getting motion sick. And it's again like a game that's very beautiful to behold, and it's got some very interesting gameplay. But like the first one, it's very short. So if you're into the VR experience, especially now that I think Prince of Persia is coming to VR, they're making a new game, then maybe buying a PlayStation might be something you would want to do. Another thing which PlayStation has and a computer doesn't is the ability to have two people playing at the same machine. So you can play a game of FIFA, you can play some Mortal Kombat, fighting games, racing games. If you have a girlfriend or if you have a friend, I guess this is why you would want to buy a PlayStation so that you can sit on the couch and play with them. And finally, it's for the people who aren't computer savvy and don't have the time and the money in order to think on how to build a new computer. For them, like paying a hands down price and just buying something that they know is going to play most of the games, then that's something that they can do. And then if you're a fanboy, right? Like if you always bought a console and it's that time of year again, then you're going to buy it no matter what. So, all right, those are the arguments that I could think why people like to torment themselves and spend money on buying a console. If you know more, do let me know in the comment section. My biggest gripe is that there aren't enough games that are exclusive for that particular console. That's my point. And I would go as far as to say that consoles are hurting the gaming industry right now because I know a lot of games that have been downgraded and they had features removed or graphics downgraded in order to be able to run on a console. So that's something that really upsets me. Like the graphics in games would have been miles in the future if it wasn't for the console market. But that's just something that is of a personal opinion. Now let's talk about money. So as you know, PlayStation 5 is coming out this year, and usually in February it's when Sony would talk about price and they would start talking about how much it costs. Because poor people like myself, if we want to buy something more expensive, we have to save money in advance. And apparently the price to create one of the new PlayStation is at $450, but there's a caveat. And that is that the parts required to make a PlayStation 5 are quite rare. And this is due to the fact that other companies like Samsung use those parts in order to make their phones. Like the Galaxy S20 actually requires some parts that are found in the PlayStation 5. And in a capitalist market, when there is a high demand and the supply doesn't go up, then the price goes up. So this is a big issue for Sony, and this is why they haven't announced the price yet. Now, I don't know if the problem with China being quarantined and having its borders locked by other nations around the world is going to also affect the availability of parts. I know that a lot of rare earth minerals are found in China, and these are used in components for electronics and gadgets like phones and consoles. So I don't know if it's actually going to affect it. But what I do know is that I finally understand why so many corporations that are into technology are pushing to take away your right to repair. What this means is that once they sell you a console, they want to have legislation to forbid repair shops, like, you know, mom and pop shops that repair consoles, to be able to open the console, because they would consider that to violate their intellectual property. In reality, what it is so that they can put these mom and pop stores out of a business, so that the only place you can repair would be at an authorized shop. So if you have a Samsung phone, you need to take it to a Samsung shop. If you have a PlayStation, you need to take it to a Sony shop. If you have an Apple phone, only at an Apple place, right? And the reason is that by driving away competition, they can charge you more for repairing. Something that could cost $10 to repair, they might ask you $100. The reason they do this is to convince you to buy the new phone, to buy the new gadget, or to just charge you extra for something that would cost $10, they can charge you $100. Like, here's an American senator actually talking about this.
Chair, so a couple of quick points. I heard it said here that there are many options currently for repair. When I had a fan break in my Xbox, I only had one option. I had to send it back to Microsoft. I had to wait several weeks. It was expensive, and then I got back a unit which was probably not the same unit I sent in. Obviously, they wipe all the data and say that you won't have any problem restoring all your accounts. And you know, maybe it's actually harder than that. My point here is that this is about competition. There's no competition. If there's competition, then people would have to try to get that console repaired more quickly. They'd have to get it back to me in a way that I wanted as a consumer. So I wanted to kind of probe into that. I recognize the need for protecting digital copyright, and I think that's absolutely legitimate, but a broken fan is not part of that. When a pad on my Xbox controller gets worn because it's old, I don't see a copyright problem with taking the thing apart and putting in a new pad. Why do I have to get a super special screwdriver in order to do that?
So that you have to spend money on that super special screwdriver that goes to the company, and you can't use that super special screwdriver for anything else in the house. That's why. So in conclusion, one of the last major appealing factors to consoles is that they are very cheap and most people can afford them. However, due to the fact that the components required to make consoles are becoming more rare, due to other companies needing those parts for other devices, we are going to notice that companies might start selling consoles at a loss while also trying to gather that financial loss from other parts, usually by selling you accessories, by increasing the price for their services if you want to play multiplayer, by trying to pass legislation that takes away your right to repair, and as this senator said, by having to purchase a super special screwdriver from them that you can only use for your particular brand of console in order to open it, so if you want to clean it for dust or whatever. So I do expect more of these practices to appear in the future. The price for the new console is probably going to be $480 according to Bloomberg. It's usually $30 extra than what its initial cost. That was the thing for the previous version of PlayStation. So we expect the same to be for this model. But you need to be very aware that there is indeed a legal battle going around right now in the United States about lobbyists and companies that are trying to take away your right to repair a product by limiting your choice when you want to repair something, so you only go to them in order to persuade you to purchase a new version of the product rather than just fix your broken cooler or whatever issue you might have. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the comment section.